And welcome everyone to another recording of the Social Media Newsroom. We're back with more rants and rave about your favorite social network. I say we because, of course, I am joined by the one and only Natalie Eminae from 𝗁𝗁𝗃 Media. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me back, Pascal. I'm super excited for today's recording.
Yes, I've looked at the show notes and it's going to be another one packed full with advice, ideas, suggestions, tactics, and so on. Everyone, we are going to continue with the format. We've got 4 segments. We're going to have a spotlight on which platform this time.
We are going to be tackling the tricky world of the platform formerly known as Twitter. It is, of course, X.
Absolutely. And then we're going to move on to the one tech or tactic to try out. So we're going to have a recommendation from you, Natalie. We're going to have a recommendation from me, something that you can try out and explore whether it's going to make life easier as a social media manager. Then we're going to move on to our third segment, important, not important. This is where I've researched some of the latest news in and around the other social networks outside of maybe X/Twitter. And we're going to ask whether this is important or not important and what we should do about it. And then our fourth and final segment is film marketing social media special. And you chose the movie again.
Yes, we are looking at A Quiet Place Day 1, which I'm super, super excited about.
Yeah, so we got literally scared to death by A Quiet Place. The original one in 2018. I had to look it up, actually. Felt more recent somehow. Interestingly, Roger and I reviewed the marketing campaign for that one, The Quiet Place from 2018. So I think it's very, very fitting that you and I should be looking at the latest installation. There was A Quiet Place Part 2. In 2020, we had to be very, very patient to get back into the Quiet Place universe with Day 1. And their social media, I mean, it's just so good, people. So, and we're not going to whisper our way through, obviously, the review of that particular campaign. But, you know, what we do with film marketing social media special is look for innovative ways in which film producers and marketers have engaged their audiences and see if we can transfer that over to other industries. So yeah, looking forward to that. But before we do so, let's move on into our first segment, Spotlight on Twitter or X, you choose.
Well, I'm afraid I will probably be swapping between the two because my muscle memory always defaults to Twitter. I fondly know and remember the platform as Twitter, but these days, 2024, it is very much X. So since Elon took over, not only have we had a name change, but actually since acquiring the company in October 2022, we have had a ton of changes since he first let that sink in. And largely it's been, let's say, at best a mixed bag. There's been a lot of changes, and you and I have been talking about Twitter/X for a long time, Pascal, but even when Twitter was Twitter, and we had Jack Dorsey at the helm, it was always the platform that sort of struggled to find its place. We perhaps didn't see it evolve as quickly as other platforms like Facebook, where it tries to incorporate or acquire wherever it sees a new trend emerging. If you look at the amount of features and different things you can do on Facebook now compared to when that first launched, actually it's come a very long way, and it's added complementary networks alongside it, like things like the acquisition of Instagram, of WhatsApp. So actually we've seen Meta grow into this kind of Goliath within the kind of social media space. Whereas we have seen Twitter in its original Twitter form really sort of stick to its core beliefs in a way that used to be admirable, but arguably perhaps has left it a little bit behind other platforms. One of the things that typically gets social media audiences excited about a platform and keen to use it is the ability to do something that they can't do elsewhere. And aside from things like be limited by character count, actually Twitter is not giving us so much that we can't do elsewhere. And I think the reason that it's the right time for us to discuss Twitter/X now is basically because in response to other social networks and pressures within the organization and a view of where it might be going in the future, it's actually gone from introducing new features to starting to withdraw and put features behind paywalls. So the biggest kind of change for us in the 𝗁𝗁𝗃 office this month, and kind of arguably the straw that broke the camel's back and meant that when we were discussing what we were going to talk about in the podcast, I was like, we need to talk about X. this is where we're at. So the change that really sort of got things going for us is it's actually put its Twitter analytics, X analytics, which has always been very good for platform specific analytics, behind the paywall. So you now actually need to be an X subscriber in order to access your analytics, which has meant for us in the office, we're actually looking at this from a client perspective in terms of, okay, if you are active on X, you kind of want the stats, but is it even worth the subscription fee at this point? And it's led to a couple of really interesting conversations. So I thought now's a great time to actually have a look back at X, where it is now, where it might be going in the future, because we've got hot rumors that Elon has kind of confirmed that there's going to be a lot more further changes and a complete redesign coming up. But this is where we are at. So essentially, Elon paid $44 billion for the company back in October 2022. It took it out of public float and actually put it back into private ownership. It meant that more staff resigned or were laid off. We saw the content rules change very, very significantly and quite quickly around the type of content that is allowed on Twitter and even the types of people who are allowed on Twitter. So very, very famously, we saw the reinstatement of certain accounts that had been banned for seemingly obvious reasons, such as Donald Trump post-January insurrection, people and figureheads like Katie Hopkins, like Andrew Tate, people that I'm not sure the full Twitter X community necessarily wanted to hear from. So that sort of threw the whole ecosystem into a little bit of disarray. And immediately, Twitter sort of almost lost its place in sort of where it was or what it was doing, like quite quickly under the kind of Elon regime, or management is a more kind of way to maybe refer to it. So essentially, we also saw with that high level of change, half of Twitter's ad revenue was lost. So a lot of companies immediately stopped advertising on Twitter. And at that time, depending on the month and point in the year, prior to Elon takeover, 80 to 90% of Twitter's income had been through ad revenue. So it actually plunged the company into a high level of disarray. And essentially, since it became under private ownership, we actually don't know that much about the cash flow, because it's one of those things that then suddenly becomes much more private for a company. However, with Twitter's recent move to become what Elon refers to as the everything app, it's actually looking to receive money transmitter licenses. So actually use X as a way of paying for things. Now, to get a little bit of context around this, we can look at the kind of American digital money processors, because they don't actually do as much online banking as us Brits over here. It's just one of those things, chip and pin, and it certainly tap to pay was kind of slow to roll out in the US. And instead of having digital banking where they might transfer money between their accounts, they often use a third-party system. So rather than use their bank to pay back friends and family directly, or to send money, there's a huge culture around using Venmo in the US, which is used for business transactions, but it's also used for peer-to-peer money sending. And with Elon's background in PayPal, he's been eyeing up that Venmo offering and looking at it in a way of, okay, we can actually make some money from this. So it's not our ad revenue, it's something quite different, but in the, hope of making Twitter an everything app, if we can get a solid payment system in place, which would be something that differentiates X from other networks, because although Facebook are kind of constantly under the process of trying to bring in payment on the platform, that's certainly not a global feature yet. So if X could perhaps turbocharge this and jump the competition, it might make for a very interesting social platform. It is also something that's more akin to actually looking at WeChat, which is massive in China, which is basically the kind of end goal of an everything app, where it's an app that people use, but you can use it to do your online banking through it. You can use it to order a taxi. You can use it to order a takeaway. You can use it to do your online shopping. So it's a social network, but it is an everything app. So really, really interesting to kind of see that. So essentially, with the applications going out for these money transmitter licenses. For the first time in a little while, we've got some financial data behind X. And we can actually see in the first 6 months of 2023, so the first 6 months of Elon ownership, Twitter's ad revenue fell by 40%. And actually that led to first quarter losses in 2023 of 456 million. So we're actually seeing huge losses on the platform, which sort of provides a bit of really valuable context as to why then Twitter is going through this like kind of rapid pace of changes and just trying to find its place. So we've seen the, I guess, biggest revolution around the classic blue tick. So a blue tick was essentially an account verification, and under Twitter, these were given free of charge. At first, you couldn't apply for them, and then you could. It was opened up so you could actually submit an application for these to be the official representative and entity of an individual or an organization. It meant that users were actually given quite a high level of peace of mind that they were communicating with the proper company or the proper personality if it was kind of within the digital space. It made it easier to spot things like fake news or impersonation accounts or parody accounts, as they're more widely known on the platform. However, in this quest to replace that lost ad revenue and actually drive Twitter into becoming something else, we saw very quickly paid verification was introduced. Now, this is Twitter Blue, as it is known. There are different levels of subscription. There are different categories of subscription. So you can have a kind of business verification, or you can have a kind of classic blue tick verification. And this essentially starts from £9.60 per month. So if you are looking to continue with your social media strategy on the platform of Twitter, X, and you would like to get your analytics, the fee for those will be £9.60. Now, you do get other things for that, such as the ability to edit posts, which was always a kind of long requested feature on Twitter. And paid subscription, it now offers it. And you are also able to take advantage of a number of other features, such as using the Twitter AI system on the platform, which is, I guess, a interesting experience, and something that I don't know if you've had a chance to play around with, Pascal, but dare I say, not that different to other AI systems that are available not behind paywalls. So it has led to this interesting space where you can access some features, some of them more useful than others. Analytics and edits certainly bring a lot more to the table. The ability to write longer tweets and the ability to write articles, actually quite cool because it means that you can do more on the platform. However, the more these elements are put behind paywalls, the more us mere mortals who are not paying for an account will necessarily turn away from the platform, because we can actually do these things on other platforms free of charge. So it puts Twitter in this quite interesting space. Since August 2023, there's been talk of removing the ability to block accounts, which puts Twitter in a funny kind of situation where actually from a digital safeguarding point of view, that's not necessarily as, a feature that's helpful for anyone. Because ultimately you might just want to block someone for whatever reason, whether you just don't want to see their content. You can still mute, or whether you don't want them to see your content. So it brings in this interesting dynamic. This is yet to be fully actioned. We tested it in the 𝗁𝗏𝗃 office, and I can confirm we can still block. So it's all good, but it's interesting to see, and particularly around attracting younger audiences to the platform in a way that their parents are happy for them to be on the platform. It's not necessarily a brilliant feature of X. Since October 2023, it stopped displaying headlines to links that feature news articles on desktop, so it becomes a little bit harder to navigate. The classic tweet deck, which was one of the OGs from the social media scheduling platform world, and when I first started in my first digital marketing role in 2011, TweetDeck was the holy grail. It was the best platform. I had a second screen with TweetDeck just up exclusively. And it was great. It was where it was. It had then since been taken under Twitter ownership, arguably quite neglected because the features didn't quite keep up with other subscription systems. But it's always been there. powering away in the background. That is now known as X Pro for your scheduling needs. So again, if you are subscribing, there are multiple benefits from that. You cannot message people who don't follow you without a subscription, which is again a tricky area for brands. So as much as we're seeing more brands being unwilling to pay Twitter any money, actually for features that you might need to run things like basic customer service on your system, it becomes a little bit more difficult to get them there. Since January 2023, your home feed has swapped to your suggested content rather than the content from people that you follow. You can switch it back to people that you follow. However, the minute you exit the app, that's going to reset. So every time you go in, your feed is actually all this suggested content, which no kind of secret about it is heavily weighted to deliver you content from Elon himself. So it seems a little bit at this point, let's say, sus at best. But usually what we find is in that feed, it is content that is there to annoy you. So based on all of your kind of other browsing history, the types of things that you post about, the types of content that you do engage with, I find my Twitter feed upon login to be generally the opposite of what I would want to see. And argue that it keeps me angrier and it keeps me scrolling for longer and it keeps me more interested to look at the comments, because you might see a post and think, I hope someone disagreed with this person because I disagree massively. So Twitter's become this area that actually is designed to spark a bit of conflict. And it's something that it's played into because it now refers to itself as a digital town square where all voices can be heard and debated. So it's essentially become a platform that is more focused around discussion and debate than it is around necessarily collaboration and positive engagements, shall we say. So it's interesting that it sort of played into that, but certainly by bringing these more divisive figures back onto the platform, you can sort of see that there's a lot more at stake here. And essentially it's something that's sort of moved Twitter from a tool that people might have felt more comfortable engaging with to a slightly overall angry space. Now, there's lots of changes that are coming up. We are seeing some further developments literally off the press this week around X for Business. So it's basically brought in for the first time in a little while, certainly the first time that I've seen, webinars. So Twitter under Jack Dorsey regime used to run regular and kind of Twitter webinars for agencies, for advertisers and for businesses on the platform. I've actually just seen our first kind of invite to one of those for quite a while. Certainly for the last one that I can remember has come through this week. Basically looking at the launch of something called Ads Academy, which is now a X e-learning platform. This is kind of hot off the presses, and it's a new kind of digital resource to encourage businesses to advertise on X, and essentially it's a kind of tutorial guide. So if you are considering advertising on X, there are new features there that you can go on, you can learn about. It's actually putting a wealth of resource behind it. It's also been announced that X has just achieved tag brand safety certification. So what this means is it's brought in a ton of new business kind of safeguarding features, which is its new control suite. What this means is for you as advertisers, you can actually control what your content is displayed next to, which does make X a safer platform. You might not necessarily want your content going out alongside articles and tweets and content that you don't necessarily believe in. So it has attempted to overcome all this brand apprehension and actually say, look, we are a platform where people go, our user base is very engaged, possibly because they're all arguing in the comments and in the replies, but our user base are engaged. They're spending a good amount of time scrolling. It is a everything app we are bringing in new features. We're bringing in video first, which is, again, another claim that they've made. I'm not sure about you, Pascal, but I'm not big for going on to Twitter specifically to watch videos. But they are claiming to be video first and to bring in new video features. If you want to check out all of these business changes, you can at business.x.com, and we'll put the link in the show notes. So you can actually have a little look. The nice thing about this Ads Academy is you can go and have a good look through it without having to run any ads for yourself. And we are seeing what has been billed as a complete redesign of X coming up. So essentially, this is going to make likes kind of even more private, so you can't see who has liked posts, but it's actually going to hide features further. So essentially, what X is set to do is remove engagement and interaction buttons from your social media feed. So when you go onto the platform, these buttons that we are so used to seeing at the bottom of every tweet, or every X, if you want to use the latest kind of terminology of the platform, they're going to be removed. And instead, we have this almost dating app style system of swiping left to like and right to reply. So you better get practicing your lefts and rights. If you're not currently on Tinder or similar, you're going to have to get, I guess, much more well-versed. If you want to reply and argue with something, you can't be accidentally swiping left and liking it. Ruin your algorithm. You'll see a load more content of things that you don't like, but maybe that is necessarily where X wants to take you. So actually, you've got those two options. You can also force touch, so kind of hold, to see a menu with more actions. Critically, this is where the retweet section currently is. So at the moment, you can't do those quick retweets, which is something that often we kind of quite quickly rely on in the 𝗠𝗏𝗃 office, because it's a nice way to engage with your other users, particularly around quote retweet, where you could kind of add something in and provide a little bit of commentary. That's one of the more heavily used features. So that's sort of going to be a bit more hidden. There's been lots of debate about this. So at the moment, videos for this have only been sort of teased by X senior management, but we have seen Elon himself weighing in. And I did notice one tweet in particular where someone was saying, "I'll just give it a chance." And then to direct quote, "If it sucks that bad, they will change it back." And I guess encouragingly, Elon has replied to that saying, yeah. So we're essentially seeing a period of quite quick change. We're seeing a platform that continues to try and find its place. We are seeing turbulence, but new features launching for businesses. And like all elements, where there is risk, there is also significant opportunity. So if you have a brand that actually is naturally drawn to an X style platform, so if you are essentially basically targeting, we see X is still very big within the kind of medical and sort of governmental fields. We still see it as massively big for customer service, because it's the number one platform to complain on because of customer service and the kind of speediness of replies. If it is relevant to your audience, there might be big opportunity coming as the platform continues to shift and adjust. And if this does pull off and become an everything app, actually the earlier you can adopt and kind of be on the platform, the kind of better. So my advice to businesses, if you are currently on X and you are worried about the removal of analytics, if it forms your hero social network, the one that you do most on and the one that works best because it's got the highest concentration of your audiences, do consider paying for the extra features, but don't just pay for them for the analytics. Actually pay for them and do the things that you can't do as an unpaid account on X, because it will actually give you significant advantage in that space. If you are putting out article content, if you are actually just being able to edit your tweets, if you do see an error in them, if you are essentially looking to have your inbox open so you can message people and provide good customer service, make sure you've got a kind of a team managing that. So the opportunity there to go with the platform is big. And I would say if your audiences are on there, absolutely use it. If you are a organization who is using X, but it's not your primary channel, you just use it because you repurpose your content for that specific platform, I would essentially say hold tight. Keep using it. Keep ensuring that you're not putting too much resource into it if it's not that primary delivery channel, and see how things go. Because either way, right now, as X currently stands, we're in for an exciting ride, I think.
Thank you very much for doing all the research and this recap. It was interesting because as I was listening to you, it was back, I was transported back in time into the reason why we all started with Twitter. And then, of course, projecting into the future, thinking, what will the second half of this year and beyond look like? So let me go through a few reactions because I think that's important. You are absolutely right to mention that I think with Twitter, and I'm calling it Twitter because X is too recent and it's just odd. It's not X marks the spot, or is it an X because you made a mistake somewhere? Um, for a very long time, when you and I, a long time ago, were doing social media training sessions in the early days of social media, we would encourage people to start with Twitter because of the simplicity, but also the way in which they could experiment for themselves, the different strategies about connecting and thinking through their content, and there was something actually very good about it. But also for me, the more I'm listening to you, I'm reading the articles and so on, the more I see Twitter stroke X moving towards almost like a SaaS type ecosystem, software as a service, where you can do a number of things. And I'm back to this idea of then can they still claim to be a social network? Because for me, I'm looking at on behalf of our customers and trainees and mentees and whatever, we look at this idea of can the platform essentially make content creation more enjoyable and more fun? Looking at the writing bit, the images, the video, the audio only, because I'm really feeling for all the people that put effort into Twitter Spaces, and we're doing audio journaling and some great debates and so on, and that's been pushed to one side by the platform itself, not by them. So number one, the platform content creation, is it supporting that endeavor? Number two, content publication. Number three, content distribution, and then content interaction. So I'm taking people through some of the modules again I go through in our training sessions. And I would say that unfortunately Twitter X is having a very average score on that bit. So you kind of go, all right, okay. So what else will it offer? Because that's the point you're asking. So what else is he going to do to make it a valid proposition? Because strangely, for all actually, Twitter X are creating a lot of discussion and debate, sometimes out of sheer frustration, out of sheer affection for the brand still to this day. It's a tiny, tiny social network. You started the conversation by reminding us about the sheer size of Meta, in its own right. And we will talk later on about how people are not attracted by going back maybe on the Instagram account, a bit like lapsed users. And we're going to talk about where TikTok is increasing its appeal to across generations and that kind of thing. So it's fascinating to me that something that on paper is a small social network, just giving everybody a headache, including, I imagine, the investors, is getting people talking a lot, and there's something in it, for me, about this idea of we all started to hone our skills as social networker with a platform that was the home for microblogging. From memory, that was what was claimed. It was easy to use, it was easy to consume, and we were all behind it for it to do a better job. And it feels that as loyal users, loyal kind of networkers, we're still waiting for the payoff in some fashion. And we can't be sure that whatever Elon Musk has in mind is the payoff that we want, or do we need to reconcile ourselves that it kind of ran its course. I mean, it was launched. I have to check again because I wasn't sure if I was misremembering, but 2006 was obviously the launch of Twitter. So nearly 20 years on, is it just a way of things, which is that it has to evolve? I'm always uncomfortable with packages where you credit them and us. I'm always a little uncomfortable with it because also it means that people are going to pay just to be an irritant on the platform. So people are going to pay just to be able to write longer bits of information that nobody particularly favors or cares about. So I'm always unsure about the packages and whether they've been well thought out or just a means to an end. But yeah, I think it will remain part of the ecosystem, and maybe deep down for all of us as people, we just love the underdog story, don't we?
Yeah.
And maybe that's what it is. This is the one that is taking on the big guys. but I think they need to do a far, far, far better job around brand values, around reputation, around actually the emotional attachments that we have, because we're not the only one having queries. Because if you look at some of the stats around the declining user base of X/Twitter, it's evident that around the globe people are little by little doing a little less on the platform, either because they're not sure what to do anymore, or either it's because they have found, back from the content creation to the content interaction, other platforms that are giving them that kind of sense that, yeah, my time is not being wasted. And we will see, I think, more platform like Blue Sky and Threads and so on coming along. But yeah, absolutely fascinating conversation. What would you think then people should do if they've been, as I have been, a long-term user of Twitter and X, but they're finding their kind of desire to be on the platform to slowly but surely be eroded? Do we just go, do you know what? Let me go back and look at the data. And if my customers are still very fond of the platform, then that's the business case, and I must crack on. Or do I actually look at my time budget and go, do you know what? Actually, based on the data, maybe I should go back and do a better job on Facebook. Maybe I should go back and put more effort on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so it's a really tricky one, and I would say that the tipping point is perhaps how much you're enjoying it as to whether you need to kind of look at it. I would recommend two things. So as much as analytics are gone now, although to be fair, with any rollout, you might still be able to access yours for the time being. So first of all, don't take my word for it. Check. Although all of the accounts we have checked at the office, unfortunately, have lost access to their analytics. But give it a go. If you can't access your analytics, you can still see the visibility of each individual tweet in your timeline, just the same way as actually visibility of all tweets is now kind of public. So you can look at any tweet and see how many people, how many impressions it has generated. So impressions, the total number of times that tweet has been seen. It could include people seeing it multiple times within impressions. It's slightly different to another social media metric that we use, which is reach, where it's actually reaches real individuals. So impressions, total number of times it's been seen. Now, have a little look and a scroll through your own Twitter timeline of your content. It will show you how much visibility each one of those posts is generating. Now, if you are getting good visibility for those posts and they're not taking you too long to process, that might be a good trade-off. Also, have a little look at how big your audience is on Twitter and start to, I guess, see if there is still that appetite. If people have been pulling away from Twitter, you might find that you might have lost a few followers recently. So review that number, decide how big your potential audience is on the platform, check out the visibility you are currently getting, because if it's taking you a long time to put together what are great content tweets, but then you are getting visibility that's very poor on the platform, actually, it's probably worth having a look at your other platforms and seeing, okay, if it takes me half an hour to put together a tweet and it takes me 15 minutes to put together an Instagram post, what's my visibility like on Instagram? And have a little look at where that is. Have a look at how big your audiences are on those other platforms, and perhaps give yourself a week or kind of 2-week period, or even a month if you want to take a really in-depth look, and keep a really, really close eye. Log the time that you're spending on the platform, log the visibility. You will still be able to get a rough idea of your own engagement if you start to look at how many kind of likes that you are getting on your own tweets, if you are looking at kind of the retweet numbers on that. Although you can't go to a nice analytics page, you can go old school and sort of jot it down. Keep it in a spreadsheet if that's your jam. I'd be more likely to jot it on a post-it and review it in a kind of half-hour deep dive, but each to their own on whatever's gonna work for you. So I would have a look through kind of all of that. If you find that actually your not getting the results that you want, maybe then give yourself a kind of another week or a set period of time where you think, okay, I'm going to go more in and I'm going to see, because I want to stay on X and I want to get more. So I'm going to go more in. It might be you go more in and you trial a kind of premium subscription. It might be that you go more in and you look to engage more and you look to go, okay, that's my current visibility for what effort I'm putting in. I'm going to try and get that up. And at the end of that set period, you'll have two kind of sets of data to kind of monitor against one another. And you will be able to then sort of say, okay, at this level of effort, I don't get the results that I want. At this level of effort, I do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step it up. So I'm going to actually, in this space of there's opportunity on the platform, I'm going to go deep. I'm going to put that effort in. If you find that you kind of, you are able to get this result, but then you sort of get that result for a ton more effort, it might be, I'm not happy with this one, but I'm also not happy with that one for the added level of effort. So instead, I am going to explore my kind of opportunities with other platforms. Nice thing about Twitter is you can always go through, remove that content, and essentially give yourself what I would refer to as a clean account. So it doesn't look like you've stopped tweeting. It looks like you perhaps have never tweeted. You're just holding the username. That will give you the opportunity to always come back in. Quick word to the wise on that. You do need to maintain that username. So make sure you are still logging in regularly and actually perhaps even just engaging with other people's content, even if you're not putting out your own. That is the only way you will keep that username secured to you, and it won't become available. So make sure that you're kind of bringing that in for a bit of consideration. You can trial other networks. So you can say, okay, I'm taking out X, but I'm going to add in 𝗏𝗏𝗲, for example. And you are able to kind of transition across. A really cool feature from 𝗏𝗏𝗲 that's launched this week in an attempt to bring that user base, I don't know if you've seen this, Pascal, is you're actually able to put together a pack, like a welcome pack, to send your friends or contacts or colleagues to get them to join 𝗏𝗏𝗲. So rather than just an invite for 𝗏𝗏𝗲, which previously was invite only, then it opened up and everyone could join, but there wasn't that much conversation kind of happening. I've been trying it, putting it down, picking it up, trying it, but I haven't personally found that much content for me on there. But what I'm now able to do is actually send my friends and contacts a welcome pack, and what that will do is it will suggest accounts for them based on all the things that I know they're interested in. So it lures them over with this promise of content that they want to see in a really democratic space. So there's other opportunities out there. So if you find that X is no longer your jam, review it, see if there's potential. If there is, like I say, with any kind of turbulent time, with change does come opportunity. So it might be one of those ones that it's worth rolling with the punches. If you find that it's not quite worth your while and you're not enjoying it and your customers are no longer active on the platform, give something else a go with that space, or go into those other networks where you do see that more opportunity, whether that is TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or even kind of a new contender like 𝗏𝗏𝗲 or Threads. But I would absolutely don't stay in the same place. If you're unhappy and you think it's not working, make sure that you are jumping one way or another.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Those spotlights or deep dives even, they're so important because, we all get very busy. We all get on with the stuff. Sometimes we get stuck into not a routine necessarily, but the planned work and the intention for our viewers and listeners is for Natalie and I to give you a quick update, in the space of half an hour or so. And then you go away and reflect on that. And on that very point, please send us your suggestions for the next spotlight. So far, we've done reviews on YouTube and Meta in general and LinkedIn, Twitter, X. We've also looked at a couple of reports from the industry. So let us know what is the platform that you're currently using that you'd like to maybe rediscover, or maybe a new one that you're thinking of adding to your very, very busy day. So do be careful. Let us know. We're going to speed things up now with our next segment. We're going to start with the one tech or tactic to try out. Now, in this segment, Natalie and I give you one tech or maybe one tactic to try out that could make life easier as a social media manager. So, Natalie, have you gone for a tactic or technology?
I have gone for a technology this time around, Pascal. And it's one that we're big fans of in the 𝗬𝗏𝗃 office. It is one that's got much better recently. And it's one that is from our friend AI. So one of our favorite AI systems to use, and one that's actually most practical in terms of providing extra marketing assistance and not doing that thing where you just get AI to do bad marketing on your behalf, actually lives within the TikTok Creative Center. And this is an area that they've put a lot more resource in over the last kind of 12 months. And we've seen it launch all sorts of cool features and ways for marketers and business owners to actually quickly find out what's working on TikTok within their sector. They are able to do this by engaging with a ChatGPT conversation style system known as 𝗶𝗵𝗄. Now, 𝗶𝗵𝗄 is there to essentially help you research what's working on the platform for yourself. So you can ask it what's popular within your sector. You can also ask it what's popular within the age demographics that you are kind of looking to target. You can ask what's popular within kind of certain topics that you might want to discuss, and really help to get a better idea of what's relevant to your sector without having to do that thing that we all do on social, which is if we're researching, we look through trending topics, we might do a bit of keyword research. Essentially, that speeds all of that up for you, because you're actually able to then get some good example videos that you can then watch and then do a little bit of further research on. Again, remember, this is an assistant. You've got to still be putting in the legwork. It is the marketing intern and you are the marketing director. So it'll give you a starting point, but you've got to kind of steer it. The nice thing about this AI system is you can actually feed in information as well. So you can give the AI more context as to the information that you're looking for. So you can advise as to whether you are an agency, whether you are the business itself, and you can essentially feed it with prompts. You can then take it one step further. So go beyond this content research, actually into the content creation. And again, remember, it's an assistant. It's not going to do it all for you. It will just help speed things up. You can actually use 𝗶𝗵𝗄 to help create video and generate through generative AI. And you can also use it to help you write your TikTok scripts. So if you are doing little pieces to camera and you want them to be snappy, as is the way of short form video, and you want them to include good things that trigger little dopamine hits like audience reward and reveal, then this will help you to really shape that. So it's one of those things that helps solve that social media market dilemma of, I want to create really great content, but I'm not quite sure what that might look like. It helps you get there in terms of understanding and coming up with ideas, and then it helps you produce the best possible content. So the perfect AI assistant for the TikTok realm, but you can also apply this to other platforms. So what's working on one typically will work on other platforms. You might not want to make it as TikTok-y if you are putting it out on LinkedIn, for example, but you can certainly use this if you are looking to do anything with short form video. It's an absolute winner.
Thank you very much. And strangely, whilst we don't talk to each other, I mean, please, audience, viewers, and listeners, we get on with a very, very busy day. We kind of add things into the show notes document, but we don't consult. But I have gone again as well, forgive me, with an AI solution and want to create new ideas for your social media content. I want to mention something called 𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗃.ai. And it's a lesser known version of what people would be familiar with, which is ChatGPT, maybe more Gemini now, and also Microsoft Copilot. But what is interesting about 𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗃, and it's the same kind of interface and dashboard of a search engine, but if you understand that it can really help you summarize your articles, your videos, and more, to begin with, to give you some suggestion by the kind of shorthand style, kind of summary statements and questions and more that you could use into your social media posting. So, how do we get people interested in this article beyond just repeating the title of the article? How do we get people to actually hear about the article more than once without just repeating the same post over and over again? What 𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗃 can do on your behalf, so long as you write a very good brief. Be careful. Back to your comment a moment ago, this is an assistant, doesn't know as much as you do. So talk about the audience, talk about the goals of your campaign. It can really give you different ways or suggestion about, well, this is how I would summarize the key point or the key takeaways. These are the kind of things that I would bring to the fore. But what is really clever about 𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗃 beyond that first pass, it then also automatically suggests follow-up questions and follow-up ideas based on the article. So then you get two things. You could then create a series of articles based on the one that you wanted to summarize, but you could also use those follow-up questions for conversations, right? So now that you've promoted the article, now you've found ways to summarize it, you can then in the comments and beyond add questions for your audience to get that interaction, that interest, as well as potentially writing about it. So yeah, I've become a big fan of the interface for the general kind of AI, Gen AI use that people are familiar with. But the more I use it, the more I realize that it's down to my imagination. So I can summarize my article or even one that you want to seem to be curating, and I'm giving a range of ideas about how I can talk about it. But also then, like I said, very powerfully, it gives you a series of logical follow-up questions and ideas that you should be using for that interaction, that element, which is what social media platforms are all about. So I've gone for a tech, which is a bit of a tactic in it as well, called 𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗧.ai.
That sounds epic and definitely one that we're going to be trying out.
But yeah, do let me know, everyone. That's going to be fun. Right, we're going to move on to our next segment. We're going to keep the pace going before we go to the Film Marketing Social Media Special, and we're going to move on to important, not important. So as we've done before, I'm going to present to you 8 news items that I've kind of come across. I'm going to ask you whether it's important and not important. Then I'll pick a couple, Natalie, that we can just talk a bit longer about and see what we should be doing, all of us as very, very busy people. News number 1, Snapchat is celebrating Euro 2024 with the release of 20 exclusive AR lenses. You can now, all of you, overlay fun and festive effects, I beg your pardon, into your faces or surroundings for more interactivity and greater fan engagement. Important or not important?
Fun, but not important. Is anyone still on Snapchat?
We're going to continue with news number 2. Pinterest introduces a new board sharing feature designed to provide a more visually appealing way to showcase collections across other platforms and formats.
Kind of important. Implies that Pinterest is looking to reach out rather than double down on keeping people on the platform. So, interesting one.
3. LinkedIn is revamping its newsletter solution with features like shifting comments to the right, the ability to embed LinkedIn profiles, and integration with Microsoft AI Designer to assist with content creation.
And optimistic, important, as I would like this to be a good feature, but at the moment it's kind of lagging. So hopefully new kind of system, better results.
Shifting news consumption habits is TikTok, surpassing Twitter/X as a preferred source for news, particularly amongst younger demographics. So maybe it is time for all of us to practice the news dance to get more interaction.
Important. It is a kind of big shift and kind of indicative of levels of trust on each network.
𝗬𝗏 take all of us onto a trip down memory lane with a brand film titled The Origin of 𝗬𝗏, produced entirely by artificial intelligence. The 60-second video tells the story of how founder Charles Lazarus created the brand and its beloved mascot, Geoffrey the giraffe.
Not important. I really just dislike the commercial, so I'm biased.
Instagram is reportedly developing new chat widgets to enhance direct messages interaction. These will include features like polls, quizzes, and Q&A options, adding a new experience to direct messages.
Important. A lot of Insta activity is dark activity, which takes place in those kind of direct messaging kind of systems. So anything that you do to keep users on the platform longer, give them new features, it will help increase that retention and kind of dwell time for the platform.
Facebook is testing a new feature called Auto A/B testing for Reels. It automatically generates different versions of your Reels and tests them with various audience segments to optimize reach and engagement.
I would say important, but important to review these when you are setting up your Reels. Make sure you're happy with them. We're seeing a lot of slightly dodgy, automatically applied AI out there. So cool if you can use it as a feature, but be wary and be switching it off if it's creating content that's not on brand for you.
And finally, the world's first Miss AI pageant has concluded, with over 1,500 artificial intelligence-generated models competing for the crown. This unique event sparked conversations about the growing capabilities of AI and its potential creative applications.
I'm going to say not important and hope that this goes away, but it certainly caused much discussion in the office earlier this week.
So actually, I'm going to group almost this one together with the Toys R Us thing and maybe even Facebook auto A/B testing. This idea of AI. Or am I thinking more AI avatars? Really, is that what I'm deep down worried about? Which is that it's hard enough to get on with social media. It's hard enough to do what we do with connect with people. But then if my future customers or current customers feed is going to be also populated with AI avatars and AI produced videos and AI tweaked reels and so on, I don't know. I just don't have a good feeling about it.
No, I am the same. It sort of blurs the line between what's real and what's not real. And we know from kind of things like the kind of Hootsuite social media trend report that actually audiences want their content to still be real so that they can actually have this high level of trust. It also, for me, falls slightly into the category to varying degrees within this is, dare I say, AI for the sake of AI. So I'm not quite sure what you can achieve from an AI pageant, or whether that's even going to be a good thing for us as a humanity and as a species to be sort of putting our attention and efforts into that. Yes, arguably it does showcase a whole creation kind of technique and the kind of the level of skill that goes into AI, but it's just a bit gross, to look at in 2024. So it's not necessarily, you would hope that AI would be used to make things more progressive, not just slightly regressive. Also, the only imagery I could see from it was actually kind of around female kind of generated imagery. We don't have Mr. AI yet, that I'm aware of. If anyone's seeing this, please don't set that up on their suggestion. I don't want that either. That's still not good. But yeah, so it's that sort of element of we can do it, therefore we are doing it, rather than we can do it, but really what's the point? A little bit similarly with the kind of Meta Reels system. Do that many brands need to A/B test their reels? It's debatable, because for most small businesses, your content is your content and you strategically put it together in a certain way. So there might be certain elements that you might want to A/B test, but again, it comes down to those metrics. If you are a small business and you're posting 3 reels a week and they are largely kind of developed around the content that you need to push for your marketing based on your wider strategy, actually A/B testing each one of those is probably enough to drive anyone a little bit crazy, because it's bringing in a huge amount of data that you might not necessarily need. However, if you are starting to shape a campaign and you want to kind of pivot that based on the audience direction, it could be a really useful tool. So apply it where you need it. Don't be afraid to switch it off. Always review it, kind of systems. And then the Toys R Us, it's very much just to create those headlines. I think it's AI so that we'll talk about it, and it's interesting, but arguably, I don't know. Again, it's sort of just look at what we can do. For me, the narrative wasn't that compelling. It was quite, I thought, rigid. It looked a bit old-fashioned in its sort of storytelling. It was 60 seconds. I really want my content in 20 to 30. But maybe that's just because I'm not the target audience for the Toys R Us brand. If you haven't watched it, I do recommend it's worth a Google, just for the magic of seeing it all kind of come together in AI. But I think this is perhaps Toys R Us just reaching for that headline and giving us something to talk about, which is fun and it's interesting to see. But I think if they'd launched a great commercial to the level of like they'd put out a John Lewis headline commercial, it could have potentially done better than their AI one. And the only way they would have done that is actually by having a higher level of human involvement, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I wonder whether we're just going through a phase of strange experimentation and things won't last. But to me, I remember also. Did you see that in the news? Somebody using AI essentially wanted to create what I don't know, it was the perfect kind of individual, or what AI thought of the individuals. So we had the perfect English person or Scottish or Irish and so on, and they were more from the realm of fantasy than reality. And I'm wondering with those as well, because Gen AI has to access a database. The photography is that they access is mostly people who are perhaps too heavily using makeup and plastic surgery. So we have this bizarre kind of result. So what I'm hoping is just chaos for now. It's going to settle. We're going to have more mature and interesting use of that type of things. But very, very quickly then, talking about LinkedIn and the newsletter. So I'm with you. It's kind of a little like not much and a bit late in the proceedings, but I'm also thinking, okay, so is it the beginning of something that's going to be more interesting? Because certainly Microsoft Copilot is going to be all over the Microsoft Office ecosystem that we can think of to assist you. And since they own LinkedIn, are we going to see something that is actually more interesting than this news headline? But something has to have a beginning. So would it help people write more compelling articles? Would it help people kind of create conversations and so on? That's the question that I have, as opposed to I can essentially write a few words and have a picture made for me, or I can do this and the other. So I think we're still at the infancy, all of us. This is barely, 18 months since the launch of ChatGPT. So let's keep an eye on things and making progress. But the realities of having a brand, having a product and services, but also having the kind of conversation that gets people to want to be in your company has been true for a very, very long time. And that's the contribution of AI as opposed to replacing all of that. I'm sure you would agree.
No, absolutely. I think the difficulty and why we see so much AI used badly or applied badly is because actually I feel like where AI is at the moment, to actually utilize the benefits of AI, it's more work for us as users, because you can write your kind of middle of the road email newsletter and you can send it out, or you can write your middle of the road email newsletter, have a AI system review it, and then send it out. And actually it goes out and it's a bit dodgy, or there's bits that aren't quite right, but you've not reviewed it. So the correct way to do it is to create it, perhaps with a bit of AI research right at the start, refine it through an AI system, refine it again through a human system. So actually you're choosing which bits of the recommendations to implement and which ones to discard because they're not quite right and it is just generalized suggestions. And then put it out. But that's significantly more work. It gives you a better end product because it's, utilizing everything correctly. But I think just the idea that where we are now, AI speeds everything up, it actually, you need to be taking more of a managerial role with it. And I think we might see a lot of dodgy AI email newsletters go out via the LinkedIn system, and it might put people off reading them. But actually, if you can utilize all this added information and resource from an assisting perspective, it might mean that you are able to generate some kind of better results through that. Certainly the conversation is going to be really interesting from this, because the issue that I've seen with most LinkedIn newsletters is people just simply take their regular newsletter and they plonk it on LinkedIn as well. And I have literally instances where the newsletter will arrive in inbox and then I'm getting a LinkedIn notification to say I've got both. They're exactly the same. So I might read it on one or the other, but I'm only going to read it once and I'm not going to engage with anything. So actually having better comments, it gives you a feature, it gives you something to be going at, and it gives you a reason to make it slightly different to the other content you're just plonking in inboxes.
Wise indeed. Listen, everyone, we've reached the final segment of the Social Media Newsroom Film Marketing Social Media Special just after this. So you've chosen A Quiet Place Day One. A sequel/prequel to the other two Quiet Place movies that have scared us to death, back in the days. Let's watch the trailer.
This Friday, what do we do? Save everyone we can.
I have a plan.
I think we can talk normally, even though that trailer just takes you into that world where you have to keep everything very, very, very quiet. So, uh, Quiet Place Day One. What attracted you to this movie, and why did you choose it for a marketing social media special?
Well, everyone loves a prequel, don't we? A good origin story. Let's finally get to the bottom of these death angels and what on earth they're doing on Earth. I have learned from my research, I'm yet to see the film, but I have learned from my research that actually, arguably, some of the reviews say it doesn't fully answer the questions, but maybe it gives us enough to go on to get a bit of wider context for the Quiet Place universe, where everything just does have to be a bit more hush hush. It is, I guess, an apocalyptic survival movie with horror and classic creature feature elements. So it's bringing a lot to the table. How could you not want to talk about it? And I know that one of the biggest things with anything that is a little bit horror, a little bit sci-fi, is usually they can have absolutely great fun with the marketing and with the campaigns.
Yeah, and so A Quiet Place, the first chapter, if you want to call it that, the first installment was released in 2018. Interestingly, Roger and I, as I mentioned, reviewed the marketing campaign for that, and that was just exquisite, everything that they did for that. And what a movie. I mean, to this day, I go back and watch it, the tension, everything, the storytelling, really how much you care for this family and the characters. Then you had A Quiet Place Part 2 that was pretty good 2 years on, and there was this gap. And unless you are big fans like Natalie and I, you wouldn't know that this was coming, even though it was filmed and was produced and so on. And they had, I would say, a short social media campaign or short marketing campaign. Now, sometimes we review movies, you and I, and with Roger, where it's a year-long campaign. There's a build-up and anticipation. But this one, it was really just a few months. So in a way, once I was thinking, oh my goodness, if where do we begin with this campaign? If there's a lot, there is a lot to talk about, but it's quite compact. Now, interestingly, very, very quickly, everyone, they do have, as you would expect, an official website, 𝗬𝗺𝗇placemovie.com, and they can redirect you in different territories around the world, powered by this great platform called 𝗬𝗺𝗬𝗧, which is a UK-based organization. So that's going to be quite interesting. And then they have, and that's interesting because on YouTube, they have the listed on the description of the trailers, the different social networks. So you've got TikTok first, then you've got Instagram, then you've got Twitter. I have to always bring the term Twitter in the conversation. You've got Facebook, and with Facebook, because of geolocation, I was redirected, as you were, to the UK platform, and they have an official hashtag, A Quiet Place. That in itself is the overview summary. Of course, they have the posters, and what was interesting when you go on the website in particular, there seemed to be a little different between the US poster and the UK one. I wasn't sure whether it was just a coincidence, accidental, or strategic, but in the US poster, you see the two main characters and kind of framed by the New York, as we understand it, and the kind of shower of meteorites coming down, and the strapline "Stay quiet, stay alive." But then in the kind of UK poster, it's just the main character, and then the phrase "Hear how it all began." And I thought it was just kind of interesting. And then we had a series of trailers. I'm going to go through them quickly until we can move on to the social media. So the first trailer, as called official trailer, was in February 2024. And it was just really, really clever because for the fans, but also perhaps for people who have not seen the first two movies, the trailer was almost like a recap. So it was like using a counting backwards from day 471, which is where the first installment started. And back to your point, we didn't know back then why and how it happened. We were thrust into this universe and just were on the edge of the seat ever since. So trailer number one, I thought, was really clever from the marketing to say it belongs to the same family. The first two chapters you've loved and adored and watched several times, this belongs into it, but we're going to go back to day one, and then all hell breaks loose into the creation of the trailer. Number two trailer was released in a few months later. And new elements was introduced around the characters, a bit more dialogues as well compared to the first one. And also, and we're going to come back to that, the cat was also introduced in that second trailer. And the final trailer that we've all kind of watched or listened to is the one that was used to kind of announce and get people excited about the movie. We are recording this literally 2 weeks after the global release of A Quiet Place Day 1. Each of the trailers, and I would say even some of the social media, had a very clear call to action, which was to text "Be quiet" to a very specific number, 929-202-7444, which actually, if you look at an old-fashioned telephone keypad, is also spelling "shh." And the whole kind of campaign across all kind of platforms and medium as well as social media, there was this the universal symbol of your forefinger on your lips, but also the kind of shh and be quiet. And when people were texting, which I did, the to that number, there was some element of interaction. If you were an international kind of follower, shall we say, you moved on to the WhatsApp platform. I can let you know a bit more about this, but this was essentially the thrust of it. And we kind of looked, you and I, at the social media activities. We're not going to have time to go through everything in great details, but in the order in which it was listed on their YouTube kind of trailer description. So we begin with TikTok and your findings in terms of what they got up to on TikTok.
Yeah, so this was very much a short form video led campaign, which is great because short form video fires off all those receptors in our brain. It gets us excited. And also, as you were saying, if it's short enough, we still have energy to do something after we've seen it. So we can follow a call to action, or we can actually think, oh, I'm going to book my tickets, because there was a lot of kind of call to action around book now, which is, great. And I guess as you would expect to see, but in a way that really gave the highlights and the best. We also saw campaign-wise, leaning in to doing things in a very social media marketing way. So they had a lot of kind of social cues that meant that you were able to read this content as for social content. Now that helps particularly when targeting a slightly younger generation, which might be why it was such a TikTok and Insta dominated field, because essentially it's saying, oh, this movie's for you. This movie's for you. Look, you understand all the ways that we're marketing it. So they used a lot of micro editing. They used a lot of memes. They used a lot of kind of types of content that we would see produced for other sectors that can be applied to marketing a horror film. So for example, they did the top 5 screams, which is often a kind of very TikTok video, the top 5. Now the top 5 could be absolutely anything. Top 5 tactics for a marketing campaign, top 5 latest products to buy from the supermarket. So the top 5 is a clearly established social cue. The audiences can then kind of watch it. They are engaging with content that feels very familiar, but is actually pushing them towards booking these cinema tickets. So we saw a hugely clever and very, very considered campaign. We also saw them overall double down on features that were relevant to social platforms. So Frodo the cat, the tricky topic of Frodo the cat, because I guess for anyone who sees a animal in what is to a certain extent a disaster movie or certainly a horror movie, there's that moment of dread. So any random character that's not introduced kind of doesn't have a name, they're collateral damage in a horror movie. You know that their odds aren't great, particularly if they go off from the group or do something kind of. But anyway, the cat, suddenly, actually, we really care. And also, you will see a huge level of people that are saying, I don't want to see the movie if anything happens to the cat. But they've actually doubled down on this. So there is a cool Facebook feature that is relevant and can be applied in times of a natural disaster, where you can actually mark yourself safe. I'm very pleased to announce that 3 days prior to recording this, Frodo the cat has been marked as safe on Facebook and on Meta. So it actually plays on these features. So it uses these native social features to market and to have a lot more fun with. But there's lots of cool things that they did, particularly on TikTok. We've got the Quiet Place Day 1 story generator. So where you are actually able to create your own personalized video and identify where you were on day 1 of a natural disaster. So this is actually a prompt to create user generated content, which is key to any successful social media marketing campaign. You were also able to follow all of the stories and then option to access the story generator through Instagram as well. So there was lots of cool features and lots of doubling down. We also saw the cast working really, really hard to create shareable content that came from other sources that could be reshared on their social platforms. And again, this was very skewed towards a slightly younger demographic. So we saw kind of all those established things like your classic MTV's So True Bestie, which is, I guess, a typical take on that Mr. and Mrs. game from the kind of the 80s, where you kind of agree or disagree on your answers. We also saw them kind of appearing on Hot Ones, so your kind of classic Hot Wings interview. So all of these great high audience volume content, established shows and digital broadcasts, we've actually seen the cast appear. But not only did they appear there, actually then the social networks for A Quiet Place, particularly around X, where content can be easily shareable, amplified these voices. So it was not just putting out their own content, it was putting out content of other authoritative sources that, again, in formats that people are very familiar with. They know what to expect, they know what to watch, so they're actually able to amplify. We also saw them do it around critic reviews and around mere mortal reviews. So they took a ton of actually just people that are saying, I've seen it, it's awesome, and just amplified these normal voices. Some of them used the hashtags, some of them didn't. So they've obviously got a high volume of social listening in place. And I actually had a deep dive, because this is how micro I will go, Pascal, on their Meta page. Now on Meta, you can go into the About section of any page, you can go to page transparency, and you can actually see all the paid ads that are running on the Meta system as part of their transparency tools. I had a good trawl through. Now, they had a ton of ads running, unsurprisingly. However, all bar 2 were short form video directing traffic. The 2 that weren't were interesting. They were carousels, so actually a number of tiles that you can scroll through, which is again great for engagement. One of them was the critics' voices, so that was your typical 5 stars, you must see this film. And one of them was actually comments that had been taken from their social networks, applied over stills from the film. And we could see what our fellow cinema-going mass public was saying about the film, which I thought was a really, really lovely take on actually taking advantage of that user-generated content from audiences and applying that to your own marketing in a way that was more democratic, which is what our younger audiences like to see, but actually more engaging, because I kind of do care more about my peer reviews than necessarily what a critic with a slightly different agenda might be saying.
You know, that's interesting, because all those activities, they are applicable no matter your industry, particularly the last one. So when I do the coaching on the Film Marketing Academy, the repurposing of positive reviews and feedback within your own kind of brand guidelines and your own typeface, and in your case, in the case of A Quiet Place Day One, within your own stills or video clips, it's so important. And I think to have the juxtaposition of, let's say, trade reaction and the public reaction is everything when you move into a social context. Before I move on to my little deep dive into Facebook UK, I did have a go at the Day One stories on TikTok, and it's really quite clever. So you could do it on TikTok, you can do it on the official website, as you mentioned, and so that you are asked, basically mention a location. So I went for Durham Cathedral, because when they asked you the question, where were you on day one? Now, day one, from the point of view of the release of the movie, was Saturday the 28th of June. I have to check the date today. So I went back on my Google Calendar. Where was I that day? And actually, I was in Durham. So I went Durham Cathedral. And then you add a few more things. And then AI generates a voice narration that talks about and whispers about being in Durham Cathedral, not make any noises. And then they superimpose the clips from the trailer, as well as some AI kind of footage and that kind of things. And it's just good fun. And then you can, it gets uploaded automatically on TikTok. You can also download the virtual video and share it with your friends on other social platforms. That's just a great way to go back to. But on Facebook UK, there was a very, very, very clever tongue-in-cheek short version of the trailer, which is making, you don't realize it is, unless you pay attention, making reference to the Euro 2024, which I think is actually right, because you might as well agree that there will be other events, including movies, because this was released the same weekend as Horizon and I think it was Inside Out 2 and a few other things, so all competing for attention. But also, there's, in the UK in particular, a big, nation fans of football. The football would be a distraction in terms of people not going to the cinema. So the way it works is you watch what is trailer, and it kind of goes, this summer, witness an event that will make a nation hold its breath. But during this kind of text animation, all you see are people in a football stadium kind of holding their breath, and then it kicks in the normal trailer for A Quiet Place Day One. I thought that was really clever, because it said, you know what, we get it. Not really is going to be available to go to the cinema that day, and we're going to play with that. And I think they carried on throughout that kind of very playful way of doing things. So the behind the scenes, which you would expect, and vlogging that takes place, that was featured on Facebook and beyond, it's kind of a very good tactic for all organizations, no matter whether you're a filmmaker or anything else. But of course, they knew that they had to get a cat in shot during those vlogs and so on. There's even a funny one where they interview the cat, allegedly. So they say, no, how did you get the role? And they point the microphone to the cat, who just looks at you, look at the camera blankly, thinking, what do you want, human? And that kind of thing. So they kind of play with that. But you were right, the entire kind of social media ecosystem, but also Facebook, was full of, listen, if something happens to that cat, there'll be trouble. And we're kind of really getting all that kind of thing. So what did they do then? Well, they went ahead and created a public service announcement video, letting people know that if you want the cat to be safe, you've got to text that number again that I mentioned earlier, and we'll let you know. So really, really kind of clever. It's a risky strategy, because if you really love cats, you could think that this is rather mean. Things that I've also spotted on Facebook, which I thought was really, really quite clever, is the use of sound, or sometimes the absence of sound. So you had a video back to the shh and the fingers on the lips, where all you had was moving images. You had obviously the lead character played by Lupita Nyong'o, who is looking at you directly and saying, don't forget, that the movie is released, but there's no sound. And then they had the other way, where there's no images whatsoever. There's just a call to action text-based headphones on, and there's some more scary soundscape where all the bits from the movie about the creatures and the crashing and the screaming and so on is played actually rather loud. Be careful, everyone, with the statement at the end, new trailer tomorrow. So I think back to, it's going to be very, very quiet, but there's also some incredible soundscape and sound experience when you're going to watch the movie that is being kind of inferred into Facebook. So I thought that was just great. And then I might as well carry on then, forgive me, from Facebook to Instagram. I mean, oh yeah, they repeat a lot of things you've mentioned, but this idea of the quiet and the shh emoji and that kind of things was played out into an animated online booking system, which we all use to book our tickets. So the kind of the empty cinema, where you pick the seat that you want. But unfortunately, the more people walk into the room and book the seat, the noisier it gets, and eventually they get attacked by the creatures. And there was also a competition, which actually I'm finding people do less and less. So when there is one, it does stand out a lot more. But it literally, if you could book your ticket via a particular platform, you also got the chance to win a collector print of the poster. And this poster appeared a bit on Twitter as well. I'm going to get your reaction in a moment, where it was playing with the sound wave system. So this is all about avoiding making noise, otherwise you'll be spotted by the creatures. And therefore sound is represented visually with the sound waves going up and down in different kind of execution. And I've been wondering whether, because this campaign has been so short, they've not had the chance to explore fully the sound wave kind of iconography on posters and beyond.
I think that absolutely anything that they can create as a bit of a symbol, as a bit of a kind of visual metaphor for that particular kind of franchise, it will be something that sets them up for, it perhaps implies that this is not our only prequel or sequel coming, and there might be other kind of points within this timeline that are picked up in due course. But I would agree with you, Pascal, the campaign overall feels like it's almost just getting started, despite the fact that the film has been out for kind of 2 weeks at the moment. Now, obviously, with how kind of cinema works now, where it is that cinematic release and then the streaming release, you sort of have to keep a little bit kind of back for that streaming release. So I'll be really interested to see where this goes. And I think you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. I think that kind of sound wave is set to kind of continue through the kind of whole campaign and PR push for actually landing this film with as many audience members as possible.
Absolutely, and I hope that it stays on screen for a while, because the other frustration as a moviegoer, titles disappear off screen too quickly, because I want to go and see these. I'm so excited now talking about you, but also by having to watch the trailers more than once and so on. On that very point, the first trailer is very interesting to me. So first, it takes you back to the universe and the previous two installments and so on. But when you watch it more than once, which is not what normal people do, so just Natalie and I and Roger and many others, there is the sound of a siren that comes back that is kind of there, several times over. It's like the warning that something, is going to happen. And then add on to that comments from the fans that Frodo the cat, could it be a nod to Alien, where they have a cat called Johnsy, albeit it's a ginger one, not a black and white cat? And do we have, therefore, from a filmmaking point of view, from the directors and producer, which does include John Krasinski, who was starring and produced and wrote the first one, do we have a nod then to the scary sci-fi movie of old, which is the Alien one, that was very, very frightening in 1975. Still gets under your skin if you watch it, particularly in a big screen. So yeah, do you think that Frodo the cat, the siren in the first trailer, which is also that appears in trailer of Alien, is a nod to the sci-fi genre and Alien being one of them, or is simply a very cold, calculated move from the marketers to just get lots of cat videos all over social media?
Maybe a little column A, a little column B. I think good films of a certain genre, and as we've previously talked about, I'm a huge Tarantino fan, but films that acknowledge the films that went before and have like little nods, little Easter eggs. So we have main characters Sam, and we've got cat Frodo. So we've got Sam and Frodo going on an adventure. Nice little kind of wink to anyone who might get that. And then we also have the element of the cat, and the siren, which again does signify kind of Alien and those types of films, and really brings that to the forefront. We've also seen it something played with in the marketing. So I don't know whether you saw, there was a collab with The Daily Show, or it simply appeared to be a trailer for The Daily Show. However, we have a load of loud audio, and then actually the set's been ravaged. That, when I looked at it, I was like, oh, that's such a nod to Date Night with the Devil, which was released earlier this year. So it's a horror that's not in the film itself, but actually being able to play on all these great kind of similar takes. If you haven't seen Date Night with the Devil, Pascal, it's basically a horror film set during a live broadcast of a late night US show, which again, completely novel. One of the better films I've seen this year as well, so definitely a recommendation to check it out. But all these nods, they take these audiences like you and I, a little bit geeky, know a little bit about what they like, and it makes you feel like you're part of the club, because you're like, you can get it, you can read it semiotically in this way that makes you think, oh, that's for me. I'm in on the story. I'm in on this. I've already got a bit of buy-in. It already feels like something that I'm interested in. And that's the type of marketing that is super inclusive. It's not just hammering the message of, well, this is our film, come and see it, it's out now, this is the film. It's actually that type of great marketing, a little bit like we saw with Barbie, where it pulls you in and says, this is for you, come and see it, this is for you, come and see it, this is for you, come and see it. And actually it's those types of kind of campaigns that draw in audiences, and those types of campaigns that we can learn from as small business owners and marketers to be more inclusive and to pull our audience in, because there's so much stuff out there competing for their attention right now. Like you said, there's the Euros, there's other films, there's so much, there's life. But, you know, what can we do to cut through that and actually get people to sit down and enjoy a really good horror film?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that's why this segment is so important, because in a way it takes you out of your day to day, and it invites a bit of lateral thinking, imagination, and so on. But it feels like, you know, once again, I want to thank the director, Michael Sarnowski, and the producers, you know, all the stars that have created, obviously, an experience, but also the marketers who have created almost the pre kind of movie watching experience by saying, listen, we know what you guys are like, horror fans and beyond, so we're going to, you know, have a bit of complicity, and we're going to kind of roll with this, but have that level of interaction that is what people want. But otherwise, yeah, you're right, just put an advert in print media, or put an advert, which you have done, I'm sure, TV and radio, where there's no participation. But here, people participated. In fact, just to close on that, I spotted this morning, I was looking at the Twitter and X account for A Quiet Place Day One. People actually taking pictures of themselves, walking in, going shh, like this, or doing it. That's the one where they were going to their car and they were creeping out onto the gravel path, and then trying to open the door gently on their way to the movie theater, which I think is the way it should be. So now, thanks again. A wonderful selection for film marketing, social media special. And I mean, I just can't wait to go and see this film. What about you?
No, absolutely. It's top of my list now. It was a few kind of rungs down, but I've bumped it right to the top since doing the research. I'm super excited to see it. And of course, to find out what happens to Frodo the cat. Although I trust Facebook, hopefully he's safe.
Absolutely. Everyone, time was against us. We couldn't go through everything that we discovered about the social media marketing of A Quiet Place Day One. But if you have spotted something that should have been mentioned, should have been added, please send us your kind of recommendations, and we'll give you a shout out in the next episode of the Social Media Newsroom. For now, please go out there and make sure that your social media marketing is better and faster. I was Pascal Fintoni, and she was Natalie Eminae. Bye-bye.